we want to know that our dog has a good functioning leave it command. Now, what the leave it command really is Hey, it's Gary with Natural Instinct Dog Training, and in this edition of the Adventure Series, we need to talk about the next step that you're going to need to be practicing in your training. Now, it doesn't matter if your dog's pretty well behaved, pretty good on the leash, even if your dog isn't necessarily doing anything bad, it's a good thing to be practicing. But all the way up to a dog that can be reactive towards other dogs or reactive towards squirrels, want to chase them, anything like that, we want to know that our dog has a good functioning leave it command. Now, what the leave it command really is basically whatever the dog is thinking at the time. I want them to stop, I want them to pause, I want them to look to me for permission and say, may I have it? That's all. Hi, Steve. That's all we're really looking for. Now, the things that we use the leave it command for can be things that the dog wants, something that they're drawn to. It can also be used for something the dog might be fearful of. So that could be a loud, noisy garbage truck or a delivery truck with a loud engine or something that might startle our dogs. If our dogs are nervous or scared of something and we use the leave it command, what we're really telling our dogs is, I got you. I can keep you safe. You're going to be okay. They have to feel those type commands. Now, in other videos, we've talked about what it's okay can feel like and how we provide stability and security to our dogs. But in this episode, I want to focus on that leave it command. When our dogs are engaged with something, whether that's something they want, something they're afraid of, we call that motivation. Something that stimulates them. So they could want treats, they could want food, they could want their toy, they could want the squirrel, anything like that. If we want to go out on adventures with our dogs, we need to know that they're going to check in with us before they try to chase a squirrel. And if they decide to chase a squirrel, we want to know that we can turn that impulse off. So the leave it command is a very simple command. It's something you can practice inside your home, and I highly suggest that you do that inside your home and in different places in your home, and also with different types of stimulation, things that can get the dog engaged. Because if we have good practice inside the house, then we can start going outside and practicing these things. The basic dynamics of the leave it command are really simple. We have the dog, right, Steve? We have us, and we have whatever it is that's stimulating them. First and foremost, our position in relation to them and what they're stimulated by can be really important. If I'm already in between the dog and what they might want, it's pretty easy for me to get in that conversation. Now, if I'm way behind the dog, they're way out in front of me on the leash, behind me, beside me, whatever, I might have to maneuver the dog and myself to get in between them and what the stimulus is so I can help them disengage and reconnect with me. You could say we want them to ask permission, we want them to feel safe, so on and so forth. Those are the basic dynamics. How we go about this, we don't need to overcomplicate it. Number one, we have the dog. Number two, we have whatever the stimulus is, and then we're the variable. We're the one that makes the decision, do I want to get involved in this conversation? It's not a matter of a correction, because that's not what it is. We're just interrupting the flow of that thought. So they say, ooh, a squirrel, I want it. And we interrupt them and they go, oh, may I have the squirrel? May I chase the squirrel? Whatever. May I have the treat, the toy, the ball? They see another dog. Whether they're worried about other dogs, we could say dog reactive, but the reality is a dog that is reactive to another dog, the reaction they have isn't always negative. the reaction they have might be, I really like dogs and I just want to go say hi. I still want them to check with me first. The timing on our leave it command is extremely important. First and foremost, as soon as we can identify that the dog is showing true interest. We were all taught as kids not to stare, but we were also allowed to look at things. The difference between looking and staring, we could say, is motivation, but the way to see it in our dogs, I don't need the hackle standing up. I don't need them dragging me on the end of the leash. All I need to see is focus, and that's the difference between looking at something or staring, focusing. As soon as we see them focusing on what it is, that's when we want to get involved. That's when we want to say leave it. We want to step in and so on. It seems like that we're correcting them before they've done something wrong, but that's not actually what we're doing. We're getting in early. We're on that low part of the threshold scale that it's easy to interrupt them. So just like when we were kids and our parents were making cookies, we looked in the kitchen and our parents gave us the traditional, they interrupted us. Now, if our parents looked in the kitchen and we were stuffing our face full of cookies, they were going to correct us. The interruption taught us to think before we act, ask permission. The only thing a correction taught me was if there's cookies in the kitchen, get in and get out before you get caught. It's damage control. Learning is done best at a lower level of stimulation. I need stimulation to have the conversation. If I want to talk about the dog not chasing the squirrel, the dog has to want to chase the squirrel before we can talk about it. But as soon as we can identify that the dog is focused on something, whether it's something it's worried about or something it wants, that's when we get in the conversation. The way we get in these conversations, it's not about being mean or pushy or anything like that, but we are specifically wanting to get in the conversation. We're trying to stop the thought flow so the dog pauses and checks in with us and asks permission. So I want your facial expression to change, body language, body gestures, body position, tone of voice. So there's a dog across the way. My dog stares at that dog. Facial expression, body, so on. Leave it. The dog pauses and looks at me. Relax, smile. Good dog. All we're really doing is using a predictable pattern, change in facial expression, body language, body position, tone of voice, steadily increasing pressure. As soon as the dog gives/acknowledges us wanting to get in the conversation, we soften, release, give them praise. We're teaching a pattern. When in doubt, if you're not sure what that thing is or you're not sure if you're allowed to chase it, I want the dog to check with us. This gives them that feeling of reassurance, stability, and security, and it also teaches them to be polite, to ask permission. Now, how does this apply to us going on adventures? Well, if I want to go walk around the block with my dog, and if you don't normally walk, guess what? That's an adventure. If you want to go in the front yard instead of the backyard, that's an adventure. If you want to go hiking, paddle boarding, car rides, anything like that, those are all an adventure. It's something different than what they do every day, which means that there could be a whole bunch of new stimulus. That's what holds a lot of us back. We try to do something with our dogs and it's just too hard. They're too engaged. They're too excited. They don't know what to think. It's like a kid in the amusement park for the first time. It's just sensory overload. I want it to slow down. Now we're going to talk more in following episodes about the right way to get our dogs ready to go on our adventures, to go on our walks, how we go out the doors, things like that. But in this phase of it, I want you to understand and work on the leave it command. Now, the dynamics of the leave it command, like I said, they're really simple. Don't overcomplicate something. If I take the ball and I know my dog likes the ball, and I toss the ball. As soon as the dog focuses on the ball, leave it. I might step in. I'm not trying to kick or anything else. I'm just stepping in. I'm making it obvious to the dog that I'm getting in this conversation. The second they give, they soften, they tuck down, they release, step back, smile, good dog. This isn't a correction. We're interrupting the flow of a thought. When they stop and look to us, good dog, and we give them praise. Now, if my dog likes toys, we might toss a toy. The dog's gonna wanna run after the toy. Same thing, leave it, they stop, good dog. If it's food, whatever you can use, and I highly suggest try anything and everything you think your dog likes. Now, if your dog is scared of things, it's the same process. By stepping into them, by applying pressure to them, body language, verbal, physical gestures, physical position, we are also giving them that feeling of, I got you. So it's actually our way of giving reassurance. Practice the leave it command as much as you can. Anytime you have motivation, you have an opportunity to have a conversation. And all the conversation is identifying what the dog, Steve, you're so cute, what the dog is thinking, interrupt their thought, the dog acknowledges us and looks away from what they were doing, and we give them praise. We soften, we give praise. All this is, it's not a correction, it is a command. And when I say leave it, and a command is not, I'm dominant and you must obey, but when I say leave it, I want the dog to stop what they're doing and check with me. Do this on your walks. Do this around the house. The more you do this, the better. And even if you have a dog that's reactive, again, the dog can be positive reactive to other dogs. You know, typical golden or typical lab, they think every dog, or Buddy, my white husky, thinks every dog is potentially their friend. They're not aggressive reacting, but they're still reacting, aren't they? That's reactive. If they're scared of other dogs, worried that something bad's gonna happen, prey drive kicks in, anything like that, they're lunging, barking, whatever, they're still being reactive. The more the dog understands the leave it command, because what we really want is when you see the squirrel, may I want the dog to stop and think, may I do it? I also, at the same time, want the dog to stop and think when they see the other dog or thing that they're scared of, that if they think of us, that's the reassurance that we can keep them safe. So practice the leave it command, follow some of the examples that I gave. If you're having any problems with the leave it command, if you're not sure when you should do it or how you should do it, go back and watch the other parts of the video. It shouldn't be a complicated command, and you're not looking for trying to do this when the dog's highly escalated. I want just enough stimulation to have a healthy conversation. A healthy conversation is just an exchange. The dog's thinking about something, focus on something, we interrupt them, they look to us, we give praise. That gives them the foundation of how this works. If you're having problems, if you have questions, leave your questions in the comments, send us a direct message, and I'll be more than happy to get to those as soon as I can. If you're enjoying the adventure series, please like, follow, share, and subscribe to our social media channels, and help as many other people that you know help their dogs so they and their dogs can have a better relationship. Thank you for watching.